Part 1. Kyle Morrison stood by the window of his ship, looking out at the stars. He had been the human ambassador to the Galactic Council for 5 years now. 5 years of meetings, debates, and trying to make aliens understand that humans needed help. But 3 months ago, everything had changed. The Council had voted against protecting humanity from attacks. 847 alien species had said no. Only 3 had voted to help humans. Kyle remembered that day clearly. He had stood in the giant council chamber surrounded by thousands of alien beings. He had shown them videos of human colonies being attacked. He had given them numbers of how many humans had died or been taken as slaves. He had begged them to extend the same protection they gave to hundreds of other species. But they had refused. The Vrexian Empire had been raiding human colonies for 2 years. They came in their warships, took whatever resources they wanted, and captured humans to work as slaves. The human defense forces were small because the Council had rules about how many weapons each species could have. Humans had followed those rules, trusting that the Council would protect them if they obeyed. That trust had been a mistake. Sophie Green walked into the room. She was young, maybe 25, with bright red hair tied back in a ponytail. She worked as the communications officer on the Aurora, the human diplomatic ship. "Sir, we have another message from Representative Thelvan. He wants to meet with you. He says it's urgent." Kyle shook his head. "Tell him no. That's the 5th time this week he's asked." Sophie bit her lip. "Sir, he was one of the 3 who voted for us. Maybe we should hear what he has to say." "It doesn't matter," Kyle said. His voice was tired but firm. 3 votes out of 850 don't change anything. The Council made their choice. Now we make ours." The door opened again and Lisa Yang came in. She was the captain of the Aurora, a woman in her 40s with short black hair and sharp eyes. She carried a data pad in her hand. "Ambassador, I have the reports from all our battle groups. Every ship is ready. The new weapons are installed and tested. Admiral Jake Stevens says this is the strongest fleet humanity has ever built." Kyle turned away from the window. "How many ships do we have now?" 247 warships, Lisa said, plus another 100 support ships. That's not counting the defense platforms we've built around our core worlds. "Good." Kyle walked to the table in the center of the room and sat down. "The Council wanted us to handle our own problems. So that's exactly what we're going to do." Sophie looked worried. "Sir, if we start fighting back hard, won't the Council punish us?" Kyle laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Punish us? Sophie, they already abandoned us. What more can they do? Put sanctions on us? Fine. We'll trade with species who actually care about right and wrong. Send their security forces after us? Let them try. I think they'll find that humans are harder to fight than they expected." Lisa sat down across from him. "The crews are ready, Kyle. They're angry. They want payback for what happened to the colonies." "This isn't about payback," Kyle said, though his eyes were hard. "This is about survival. The Council taught us something important. In this galaxy, no one protects you unless you can protect yourself. Well, now we can." He pulled up a star map on the table's holographic display. Red dots marked human colonies. Blue dots marked Council space. Yellow dots marked the areas where the Vrexian Empire operated. The Vrexians think we're weak because we followed the Council's rules. They think we'll keep following those rules even after the Council abandoned us. They're wrong. "What's the first target?" Lisa asked. Kyle pointed to a system on the edge of human space. "The Vrexians have a raiding fleet that operates out of the Kepler system. They've hit 4 of our colonies in the last month. Intelligence says they're planning another raid in the next few days. We're going to be there waiting for them." Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Sir, are we sure about this? Once we start, we can't go back." Kyle met her eyes. "Sophie, do you know how many humans have died or been taken in the last 2 years? 3,742. That's 3,742 reasons why we can't go back. The time for talking is over." The next few days were busy on the Aurora. Messages went back and forth between the human fleet. Captains checked their weapons systems one more time. Crews ran through battle drills. Everyone knew that what came next would change everything for humanity. Kyle spent most of his time in his quarters, writing reports that would be sent back to Earth. The human government needed to know everything that was happening. Some politicians on Earth were worried. They thought humanity should try to make peace with the Council again. But Kyle knew better. The Council had shown their true face. They only cared about species that were strong enough to threaten them or rich enough to bribe them. Humanity was neither, so the Council had thrown them away. On the third day, Lisa came to see him again. "We just got word from our scouts. The Vrexian raiding fleet has entered the Kepler system. 16 ships, just like intelligence predicted. They're heading toward the human colony there." Kyle stood up. "Contact Commander Greg Palmer on the Vanguard. Tell him to execute the plan. And Lisa, make sure our ships record everything. I want every second of this battle documented." "Why?" Lisa asked. "Because when the Council comes crying to us about how we're being too violent, I want proof of what we were defending against. I want them to see what they said wasn't worth protecting." Lisa nodded and left to send the orders. Kyle remained in his quarters, but his mind was in that distant system. The Vanguard was one of the new destroyers, built with technology that the Council didn't know humans had developed. For years, human scientists had been working in secret, creating better weapons and better ships. The Council thought they knew how strong humanity was. They were about to learn they were very wrong. Hours passed slowly. Kyle tried to read reports, but he couldn't focus. He kept thinking about the colony in the Kepler system. There were 50,000 people living there, families trying to build a new life far from Earth. They deserved to be safe. The Council had said they weren't worth protecting. Well, Kyle would make sure they were protected anyway. Finally, the message came through. Lisa's voice on the communicator was excited. "Kyle, you need to see this. The battle is over. We won." It wasn't even close. Kyle rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, he saw the aftermath of the battle. Vrexian ships were floating dead in space, their weapons destroyed and their engines offline. Human ships surrounded them, weapons still trained on the disabled vessels. "Casualties?" Kyle asked. "None on our side," Lisa said, smiling. "A few scratches on the Vanguard's hull, but nothing serious. The Vrexians never knew what hit them." Kyle watched the screen. This was just the beginning. The Vrexians would tell their empire what happened. Other raiders would hear about it. And most importantly, the Galactic Council would hear about it. The humans they had abandoned were fighting back and they were winning. "Send a message to all human colonies," Kyle said. "Tell them that Earth has not forgotten them. Tell them that humanity protects its own, even if no one else will." Part 2. Greg Palmer sat in the captain's chair on the bridge of the Vanguard. He was 38 years old, with gray starting to show in his dark hair. He had been in the human space navy for 15 years, and he had never felt as ready for a fight as he did today. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, quiet and focused. The Vrexian raiding fleet was getting closer. Greg could see them on the tactical display, 16 ships moving in their standard attack formation. They had done this so many times before that they probably weren't even worried. They would come to the human colony, take what they wanted, and leave. That's how it had always worked, but not today. "Distance?" Greg asked. Amy Brooks, his second-in-command, checked her screen. 40,000 kilometers. They'll be in range of the colony's defense grid in 10 minutes. Greg nodded. The Vanguard and 15 other human ships were hiding in the shadow of a large asteroid field. They had special stealth technology that made them invisible to normal sensors. The Vrexians had no idea they were there. Greg felt a grim satisfaction at that. For 2 years, the Vrexians had attacked humans who couldn't fight back properly. Now the tables were turned. "Sir, they're launching their landing craft," said Paul Martinez from the weapons station. He was a young man, barely 23, but he was one of the best gunners in the fleet. "Looks like they're planning to take prisoners again." Greg's jaw tightened. The Vrexians didn't just steal resources. They took people. Human men, women, and sometimes even children were captured and sold as slaves across the galaxy. The Galactic Council knew this happened. They had reports. They had evidence. And they had done nothing. "How long until we're in weapon range?" Greg asked. 3 minutes, Paul said. Greg stood up from his chair. "Listen up, everyone. In 3 minutes, we're going to show these raiders what happens when they mess with humans. We're not some weak species that can't defend itself. We're not going to beg the Council for help anymore. Today we send a message." The crew was silent, but Greg could feel their determination. Every person on this ship had lost someone to the raids. Amy's brother had been taken from a mining colony 2 years ago. Paul's cousin had died defending her home from Vrexian soldiers. This wasn't just a military operation. This was personal. 2 minutes, Amy said. Greg sat back down. "Weapons, I want the first shots aimed at their command ship. I want it disabled, not destroyed. We need prisoners to question." "Yes, sir," Paul said. The seconds ticked by slowly. Greg watched the Vrexian ships on his screen. They were so confident, so sure of themselves. They had no idea that death was hiding in the shadows, waiting for them. 1 minute, Amy said. All ships prepare to break stealth on my command, Greg said into the fleet communication channel. Target their command ship first, then spread out and disable the rest. Remember, we want prisoners if possible. These raiders are going to tell their friends what happens when you attack humans. The countdown reached 0. All ships, break stealth now. The Vanguard and 15 other human warships appeared out of nowhere, their weapons already charging. The Vrexian commander must have had maybe 2 seconds to realize something was wrong before the first shots hit his ship. The human plasma lances were new weapons, designed specifically to overwhelm alien shield technology. 20 beams of pure energy struck the Vrexian command ship at the same time. Its shields flashed bright blue, then collapsed. The next wave of shots hit the ship's hull, tearing through armor and destroying weapon systems. Their command ship is disabled, Paul reported. Engines offline, weapons offline, life support functioning. Good, Greg said. All ships engage remaining targets. The battle turned into organized chaos. The Vrexian ships tried to fight back, but they were confused and scattered. Their commander was offline, unable to give orders. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly where to be and what to shoot. Greg watched as one Vrexian ship tried to run. The destroyer Lightning caught it before it could jump to faster-than-light speed. A few well-placed shots destroyed its engines, leaving it floating helplessly in space. Another Vrexian ship tried to ram the Vanguard. Paul fired the plasma lance at point-blank range, cutting the enemy ship nearly in half. The Vrexian vessel exploded in a ball of fire. 1 enemy ship destroyed, Amy reported. 14 disabled. 1 trying to run. Don't let it escape, Greg ordered. The cruiser Tempest moved to intercept the fleeing Vrexian ship. Its weapons fired, and the enemy shields failed. More shots hit the engines, and the ship went dead in space. And then it was over. 11 minutes from the first shot to the last. The entire Vrexian raiding fleet was either destroyed or captured. Not a single human ship had taken significant damage. Greg stood up again. Status report, Amy smiled. All human ships reporting in. Minor damage to the Thunderbolt, but nothing serious. No casualties. The Vrexians, on the other hand, have lost 2 ships completely. The other 14 are disabled and ready for boarding. Send in the Marines, Greg said. I want every Vrexian soldier captured and questioned. And Amy, make sure they understand something very clearly. What's that, sir? The next time they think about raiding a human colony, they should remember this day. They should remember that humanity doesn't forgive and we don't forget. The boarding operation took 3 hours. Human Marines went from ship to ship, securing the Vrexian crews. Most of the aliens surrendered immediately when they saw human soldiers in full combat armor. A few tried to fight and were quickly subdued. Greg went aboard the Vrexian command ship personally. He wanted to meet the commander who had been raiding human colonies. The Vrexian was tall, maybe 7 feet, with blue scaly skin and 4 arms. He was sitting in his command chair, injured but alive. I am Commander Greg Palmer of the Human Navy, Greg said. You and your crews are now prisoners. You will be questioned about your raids on human colonies. You will tell us where you sold the humans you captured, and you will send a message to your empire. The Vrexian commander looked at him with yellow eyes. The Galactic Council will hear of this. You have committed an act of war. Greg laughed. An act of war? You've been attacking our colonies for 2 years. Where was the Council then? Where was galactic law when you were taking our people as slaves? We operate within Council guidelines, the Vrexian said. Your species has no protected status. We are allowed to take resources from unprotected worlds. Not anymore, Greg said. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to contact your empire. You're going to tell them exactly what happened here. You're going to tell them that humans are no longer easy targets. And you're going to tell them that any ship that attacks a human colony from now on will be destroyed. No warnings, no mercy. The Vrexian started to protest, but Greg cut him off. I don't care what you think is fair. I don't care about Council guidelines. The Council abandoned us, so we make our own rules now. And our first rule is simple. Anyone who attacks humans will regret it. Greg left the Vrexian command ship and returned to the Vanguard. As his ship moved away from the battlefield, he looked at the disabled enemy vessels. This was just the beginning. The Vrexians would tell others what happened here. Word would spread across the galaxy that humans were fighting back. Back on the bridge, Amy was coordinating with the other ships. Sir, Admiral Jake Stevens is on the line. He wants to congratulate you on a successful mission. Greg took the communication. Thank you, Admiral. The Vanguard and her crew are ready for the next assignment. You'll have it soon, the Admiral said. We've located 3 more Vrexian raiding groups. They're all going to have the same surprise you gave this one. By the end of the month, the Vrexians will think twice before going anywhere near human space. Good, Greg said. What about the Council? Let them complain, the Admiral said. We're done asking for their permission. After the communication ended, Greg sat in his chair and looked at the stars. Everything had changed 3 months ago, when the Council voted against protecting humanity. But maybe that was a good thing. Maybe humans needed to learn that they could only count on themselves. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and the strong survived while the weak perished. Well, humanity was strong. The Council just hadn't realized it yet. Set course for home, Greg ordered, and send a message to the colony we just protected. Tell them that Earth hasn't forgotten them. Tell them that humanity is done being a victim. Part 3 Chancellor Mordek was having a very bad day. Actually, he had been having bad days for the past month, ever since the humans started their aggressive military campaign. He sat in his office at the top of the Council Tower on Nexus Prime Station, looking at reports that made his forearms tremble with worry. Read it again, he told his security director. Velthas was from a species that looked like living crystal. Light passed through her body in strange ways, making her hard to look at directly. She held up the data pad and read in her musical voice. 17 confirmed battles between human forces and various hostile groups. 43 enemy vessels destroyed or captured. 0 human ships lost. 3 Corellian smuggling rings disrupted. 1 Xinthian weapons platform destroyed after it fired on a human cargo ship. 2 pirate bases eliminated. Over 500 slaves freed from various captors. Mordek put his head in his hands. Well, all 4 hands, since he had 4 of them. This is a disaster, is it? Velthas asked quietly. Mordek looked up at her. What do you mean? Of course it's a disaster. The humans are acting like they own the galaxy. They're attacking whoever they want. They're ignoring Council authority completely. Velthas set down the datapad. Chancellor, with respect, they're not acting like they own the galaxy. They're defending themselves and others who can't defend themselves. Everything on this report is about stopping raiders, pirates, and slavers. But they're doing it without Council permission, Mordek insisted. They asked for Council protection, Velthas reminded him. We voted no. 847 species decided that human lives weren't worth protecting. What did you think would happen? Mordek stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the massive station, home to thousands of different species. Ships came and went constantly, bringing diplomats and traders from every corner of the galaxy. This was the center of galactic civilization, the place where law and order were maintained, or at least it was supposed to be. We have received formal complaints from 6 different species, Mordek said. The Vrexian Empire is furious. They say the humans have destroyed or captured over 30 of their ships. The Vrexian Empire has been raiding human colonies for 2 years, Velthas pointed out. They've taken thousands of humans as slaves. Where were these formal complaints when that was happening? Mordek turned to face her. That's different. The Vrexians were operating within the law. Humans don't have protected status, so raids on their colonies are technically legal. Technically legal, Velthas repeated. Her crystalline face somehow managed to look disgusted. Chancellor, do you hear yourself? We're talking about slavery. We're talking about innocent people being taken from their homes. And you're saying it's technically legal? I'm saying that there are laws and procedures, Mordek said, his voice rising. The humans could have applied for protected status through the proper channels. They could have built alliances with other species. They could have worked within the system. They did work within the system, Velthas said. For 5 years, Ambassador Kyle Morrison attended every council session. He filed hundreds of reports. He showed us evidence of the raids. He begged us to help, and we said no. Mordek sat back down. He felt very tired suddenly. So what do we do now? We could try talking to them, Velthas suggested. Ambassador Morrison has refused 9 meeting requests, but maybe the 10th time will work. And say what? Mordek asked. Sorry we didn't protect you, but could you please stop protecting yourselves so effectively? Velthas almost smiled. Something like that, yes. The door to the office opened and Representative Thelvan entered. He was from a species that looked almost human, except for the silver skin and the extra joints in his arms and legs. He had been one of only 3 council members to vote in favor of protecting humanity. "Chancellor, we need to discuss the human situation," Thelvan said. "That's all I've been discussing for the past month," Mordak said tiredly. Thelvan sat down without being invited. "It's getting worse. I just received word that the humans have formed defensive pacts with 17 different species. Small species, weak ones that can't defend themselves against raiders. The humans are promising to protect them." "That's our job," Mordak said. "Is it?" Thelvan asked. "Because from what I can see, we're not doing it very well. Half the species that have signed pacts with the humans are ones that have been asking us for protection for years. We kept telling them to wait, to file more reports, to be patient. The humans just said yes and sent warships." Mordak stood up again and started pacing. "Don't you see what's happening? The humans are building their own power base. They're creating a rival to the Council. In a few years, we could have 2 competing galactic governments." "Good," Thelvan said flatly. Both Mordak and Velthas stared at him. "Good?" Mordak repeated. "You think it's good that our authority is being challenged?" Thelvan leaned forward. "Chancellor, I've been a council representative for 20 years. In that time, I've watched us become more and more concerned with procedures and less concerned with actually helping people. We spend months debating the wording of resolutions while planets burn. We worry about setting precedents while people die. Maybe we need someone to challenge us. Maybe we need someone to remind us what we're supposed to be doing." "We voted according to the law," Mordak said weakly. "We voted according to politics," Thelvan corrected him. "The big species didn't want to anger the Vrexian Empire by protecting humans. So we abandoned a species that needed help, and now we're angry because they're helping themselves." Mordak sat down again. "What do you think we should do?" "Apologize," Thelvan said simply. "Admit we were wrong. Offer to extend protected status to humanity now." "They'll refuse," Velthas said. "Probably," Thelvan agreed. "But we should still try. And more importantly, we should start actually protecting the species that need it. The humans have shown us how much good we could be doing if we tried." Mordak was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Send another message to Ambassador Morrison. Tell him I'm requesting a personal meeting. Not a formal council session, just a private conversation. Maybe if it's not official, he'll be more willing to talk." "I'll send it," Velthas said, "but don't expect a positive response." After Thelvan and Velthas left, Mordak sat alone in his office. He pulled up reports from across the galaxy. Everywhere he looked, he saw changes. The humans were becoming more active, more confident. They were no longer the quiet species that attended council meetings and followed the rules. They had become something else. He read a report from a Peltharian colony that had been saved by human ships when pirates attacked. The Peltharians were grateful and had immediately signed a defensive pact with humanity. Another report told of human medical ships helping refugees from a war zone. A third report described how human engineers had helped repair a damaged space station for free. The humans weren't just fighting. They were helping. They were doing all the things the Council was supposed to do but somehow never got around to doing. Mordak's communication device beeped. He checked it and saw a response from Ambassador Morrison. It was short and direct. "If the Chancellor wants to talk, he can come to the Aurora. We're done traveling to the Council station." Mordak read the message 3 times. The arrogance of it made him angry. But underneath the anger was something else. Respect, maybe. Or fear. The humans had learned to say no to the galaxy's most powerful organization. They had learned that they didn't need permission to do what was right. And other species were starting to learn the same lesson. Mordak sent a response agreeing to meet on the Aurora. As he did so, he wondered if this was the beginning of the end for the Galactic Council. They had existed for 1,000 years, maintaining order across hundreds of star systems. But that order had been built on the assumption that everyone would follow the rules, even when the rules were unjust. The humans had broken that assumption. They had shown that a species could survive and even thrive outside the Council's authority, and now other species were watching and wondering if they could do the same thing. Mordak looked out at the stars and felt very small suddenly. The galaxy was changing, and he wasn't sure the Council could change with it. Part 4 Jake Stevens stood on the main hangar deck of the carrier Endeavour, looking out at 3,000 crew members gathered before him. He was 52 years old, with gray hair cut military short, and a face that had seen too many battles. Behind him on a massive screen, images played silently, Pictures of human colonies that had been raided. Faces of people who had been taken as slaves or killed defending their homes. He began to speak, his voice amplified across the huge space. For 2 years, we watched our people suffer. We followed the rules. We trusted that the Galactic Council would see reason. We believed that if we just presented enough evidence, showed enough suffering, they would help us. Jake paused and gestured at the screen behind him. These are the people we trusted the Council to protect. 3,742 human beings, dead or enslaved because the Council decided we weren't worth helping. In the crowd, Ryan Hughes felt anger burning in his chest. He had lost his sister in the raids. She had been working at a mining colony when the Vrexians came. Her last message home had been a video of her being forced onto a slave ship. Ryan had watched that video 100 times, each time swearing that he would make the raiders pay. Jake continued speaking. But we're not here for revenge. Revenge is for people who have lost hope. We haven't lost hope. We found something better. We found the strength to protect ourselves. He turned and pointed at the images behind him. Every colony we defend, every raider we stop, every slave we free. We do it knowing that we stand alone. The Council won't help us. Most of the galaxy doesn't care about us. But we care about each other, and that has to be enough. The crowd was completely silent, hanging on every word. The Council is afraid now, Jake said. They're calling us aggressive. They're saying we're acting outside galactic law. They're right about that second part. We are acting outside their law, because their law said our people could be enslaved. Their law said our colonies could be raided. Their law was wrong. He stepped forward, his voice getting stronger. I want to be very clear about something. We don't recognize the Council's authority anymore. They gave up any right to our obedience when they refused to protect our people. From now on, humanity makes its own decisions. A cheer erupted from the assembled crew. It echoed through the massive hangar bay, building and growing until it shook the walls. Jake let it continue for a moment, then raised his hand for silence. Today we begin the next phase of our operations. We're not just defending anymore. We're going after every slaver, every pirate, every raider that preys on the weak. And we're not just doing it for humans. We're doing it for everyone who can't defend themselves. He pulled up a star map on the screen behind him. These are the locations of known pirate bases. These are the routes used by slave traders. These are the systems where raiders operate freely because the Council does nothing to stop them. Over the next 6 months, we're going to shut down every single one of them. In the crowd, Nicole Barnes listened carefully. She was Jake's chief of staff, a woman who had spent 20 years in the human navy. She knew how ambitious this plan was. The targets Jake was talking about were spread across dozens of star systems. Some of them were heavily defended. This wasn't going to be easy, but she also knew it was necessary. The Council had failed in its basic duty to maintain order and protect the innocent. If they wouldn't do the job, someone else had to. After the speech, Jake returned to his private quarters. Nicole was waiting for him there with a stack of reports. The Vrexian Empire has filed another complaint with the Council, Nicole said. They're claiming we've committed acts of war against them. Jake poured himself a drink and sat down. Acts of war. That's rich coming from them. What do they call 2 years of raiding our colonies? According to them, legal resource acquisition from an unprotected species, Nicole said with obvious distaste. And what does the Council say? They're requesting your presence for a hearing. They want to discuss humanity's recent military actions. Nicole handed him a formal invitation. It's scheduled for next week. Jake read the invitation and laughed. They want me to come to Nexus Prime and explain myself? Like I'm some kind of criminal? That's what it sounds like, Nicole agreed. Tell them I'm busy, Jake said. Busy protecting innocent lives since they won't do it. Nicole hesitated. Sir, they're threatening sanctions. Economic penalties, travel restrictions, things like that. Jake set down his drink and looked at her seriously. Nicole, do you remember why you joined the Navy? To protect people, she said immediately. Exactly. Not to follow the Council's orders. Not to worry about their rules. To protect people. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see dozens of human warships floating in formation. The Council can threaten whatever they want. Humanity doesn't need their markets or their approval. We have everything we need right here. What if they send their security forces after us? Nicole asked. Let them try, Jake said quietly. We've been building our fleet in secret for 5 years. We have weapons technology they don't know about. We have ships that are faster and stronger than theirs. If the Council wants a fight, we'll give them one. But I don't think they do. Why not? Jake smiled slightly. Because they're politicians, not soldiers. They're used to people obeying them, because that's how it's always worked. They've never had to actually enforce their authority with force. And I don't think they want to start now. Especially not against a species that just destroyed the Vrexian raiding fleet without losing a single ship. Over the next few days, Jake met with his senior officers to plan the next operations. They identified 12 major pirate bases operating in the outer regions of known space. Each one would require a significant military force to shut down. We'll split the fleet into 4 battle groups, Jake explained, pointing at a holographic map. Each group will target 3 bases. We hit them all at the same time so they can't warn each other. What about the Council? Asked Captain Henry Carter. He commanded the battleship Valiant and was one of Jake's most trusted officers. What about them? Jake replied. They're going to notice when we attack 12 targets at once. There's going to be a huge political reaction. Jake nodded. I'm counting on it. I want the Council to notice. I want every species in the galaxy to see that humanity is serious about ending piracy and slavery. And I want the criminals to know that there's nowhere they can hide anymore. The officers spent hours going over the details of the operation, which ships would go where, what weapons would be used, how they would handle prisoners. Jake insisted that all prisoners be treated according to human standards of justice, which were much stricter than what the Council required. We're not like them, Jake said. We don't torture. We don't execute prisoners without trial. We're better than that. Finally, after 3 days of planning, everything was ready. The 4 battle groups departed from the Endeavor and headed to their targets. Jake remained behind on the carrier, coordinating the entire operation. The attacks happened simultaneously across a dozen star systems. Human warships appeared without warning, overwhelming the pirate defenses. The battles were short and decisive. The pirates, used to raiding weak merchant ships, had no chance against military vessels designed for war. When it was over, all 12 bases had been destroyed. Over 200 pirate ships had been captured or destroyed. And most importantly, over 3,000 slaves of various species had been freed. Jake stood in the command center of the Endeavor, watching the after-action reports come in. 0 human casualties. Complete success on all targets. He should have felt triumphant, but instead he just felt tired. Nicole came to stand beside him. The freed slaves are asking what's going to happen to them. A lot of them are from species that don't have the resources to get them home. We'll take them home, Jake said. All of them. No matter how long it takes or how far we have to travel. The Council is going to have a lot to say about this operation, Nicole warned. Jake smiled grimly. Then I guess they'd better say it to someone who cares. Because I'm done listening to the Council explain why they can't help people. He turned away from the displays and headed for his quarters. Tomorrow there would be more battles, more pirates to fight, more slaves to free, more colonies to protect. The work was never done. But for tonight, Jake allowed himself to feel satisfied. They had saved 3,000 lives today, lives that the Council had deemed not worth saving. Maybe the Council would learn from this. Or maybe they wouldn't. Either way, humanity would keep doing what was right. Part 5. 6 months had passed since the Council's vote. Kyle Morrison walked through the entrance of the Grand Council chamber on Nexus Prime Station. Behind him came Lisa Yang, Admiral Jake Stevens, and Claire Peterson, his legal advisor. The massive circular room was filled with representatives from hundreds of alien species. Kyle could feel their eyes on him as he walked to the center of the chamber. He had refused to attend council meetings for 6 months. He had ignored their messages, their requests, their demands, but finally he had decided to come. Not because he thought the council had anything useful to say, but because it was time to make humanity's position absolutely clear. Chancellor Mordak stood from his raised throne. His 4 arms spread wide in what was supposed to be a welcoming gesture. Ambassador Morrison, thank you for finally accepting our invitation. The council has many concerns about humanity's recent military actions. Kyle remained standing. Someone had placed a chair for him in the center of the room, but he refused to sit. He wouldn't sit while being judged by the species that had abandoned humanity. I'm here as a courtesy, Chancellor, Kyle said, his voice carrying across the huge chamber, but I want to be clear from the start. Humanity no longer recognizes this council's authority over our actions. A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. Several aliens stood up, making angry gestures. Mordak raised his hands, calling for silence. "Ambassador, surely we can find common ground," said Representative Thelvan. He was one of the three who had voted to help humans. "Your species has destabilized 3 entire sectors with your military campaigns." "Correction," Kyle said sharply. "Our military actions have ended the slave trade in 3 sectors. We've eliminated pirate bases that you've ignored for decades. We've protected colonies that you voted weren't worth protecting. You've acted outside the framework of galactic law," Mordak said. Kyle laughed. The sound was harsh and bitter. "Galactic law? You mean the law that said my people could be enslaved and you would do nothing? That law?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a data pad. He held it up for everyone to see. "Do you know what this is? This is a list of every human life lost to raids while we waited for your protection. 3,742 names, men, women, children, all dead or enslaved while you debated and voted and filed reports." Admiral Jake stepped forward. He was in full military uniform, his chest covered with medals. "The Council had a choice 6 months ago. You could have extended your protection to humanity. Instead, you taught us a valuable lesson. In this galaxy, power is the only real protection. So you choose to become conquerors?" demanded Representative Zith. His tentacles waved angrily. "You choose to become the very thing you claim to fight against?" "No," Kyle said firmly. "We choose to protect ourselves and others who can't protect themselves. Every species we've aided, every raider we've stopped, every slave we've freed, we did it because no one else would." Claire Peterson stepped forward and activated a holographic projector. Images began to appear in the air above the center of the chamber. Human ships defending a small alien colony from pirates. Human medical teams treating wounded refugees. Human engineers rebuilding a damaged space station. "We're not conquerors," Claire said. Her voice was calm but strong. "We're doing what you should have been doing all along." The chamber erupted. Dozens of species started shouting at once. Some were angry at humanity's arrogance. Others were arguing with each other. A few were calling for the Council to take military action against humans. The noise grew so loud that Mordak couldn't restore order for several minutes. Finally, Representative Thelvan's voice cut through the chaos. "Ambassador Morrison, what does humanity want?" Kyle met his gaze steadily. Thelvan had tried to help humans. He deserved an honest answer. "Recognition, not of your authority, but of our sovereignty. We want other species to understand that humanity will defend itself and its allies. We want the raiders and slavers to know that we are no longer easy prey." "And if the Council opposes you?" Mordak asked quietly. Kyle's expression hardened. "Then the Council will learn the same lesson the Vrexians learned. Humanity asked for your protection once. We won't make that mistake again." He started to walk toward the exit. Lisa, Jake, and Claire followed him. At the door, Kyle paused and looked back at the assembled Council. "You regretted the day you voted against us, Chancellor. But that regret is meaningless. What matters now is what comes next. The galaxy is changing, whether you're ready for it or not." The human delegation left the chamber. Behind them, silence fell over the Council. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council had no response. They had created something they never expected. A humanity that no longer needed their approval, no longer feared their disapproval, and no longer cared about their regrets. As Kyle walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime Station, he felt oddly calm. The meeting had gone exactly as he expected. The Council was shocked that a species would dare to defy them. But shock would turn to acceptance eventually. Or it wouldn't, and humanity would continue on its own path regardless. "Sir, that went well," Lisa said with a slight smile. "Did it?" Kyle asked. "You made our position clear. No confusion, no room for misinterpretation. They know exactly where we stand now." They reached their shuttle and climbed aboard. As they lifted off from the station, Kyle looked out the window at the massive structure. Thousands of ships docked there, representing hundreds of species, all of them following the Council's rules, obeying the Council's authority, all except humanity. Back on the Aurora, Kyle went to his quarters and sat down at his desk. He pulled up the latest reports from across human space. The news was good. 17 different alien species had requested defensive pacts with humanity. Small species, weak ones that couldn't defend themselves against raiders and pirates. Species that had been asking the Council for help for years and getting nothing but promises. Humans were giving them warships and protection instead of promises. Kyle drafted a response to all 17 requests. Humanity would be happy to discuss mutual defense agreements, but there would be conditions. Any species that allied with humanity had to commit to certain principles. No slavery, no piracy, no raiding of innocent colonies, and a willingness to defend other allies when they were threatened. Several hours later, Lisa came to see him. Kyle, we're receiving messages from all over the galaxy. Other species are asking about forming alliances with us. Some of them are pretty significant powers. How significant? Kyle asked. One of them controls 20 star systems. Another has a fleet almost as large as ours. They're all species that have had problems with the Council at some point. Kyle leaned back in his chair. This was happening faster than he expected. What do they want? The same thing we wanted 6 months ago: protection, respect, a voice that matters. The Council has been ignoring a lot of species for a long time. Now they're seeing that there might be an alternative. We're not trying to replace the Council, Kyle said, aren't we? Lisa asked. Kyle, think about what we're doing. We're forming alliances, building a fleet, establishing our own rules. We're creating exactly what the Council was supposed to be. Kyle was quiet for a moment. Maybe you're right. But if we are replacing the Council, we're going to do it better than they did. We'll actually protect people. We'll actually enforce justice. We won't let politics get in the way of doing what's right. That's a tall order, Lisa said. I know, but someone has to try. Over the next few weeks, Kyle met with representatives from dozens of different species. Some wanted military protection. Others wanted trade agreements. A few wanted help dealing with internal problems that the Council refused to address. Kyle listened to all of them carefully. The human government back on Earth was divided about what Kyle was doing. Some politicians thought he was moving too fast, taking on too many commitments. Others thought he wasn't moving fast enough. But everyone agreed that humanity's position in the galaxy had changed dramatically in just 6 months. Admiral Jake continued to lead military operations against pirates and slavers. Every successful mission made more species want to ally with humanity. Every freed slave was another person who would tell others about the humans who had saved them. The Galactic Council watched all of this with growing alarm. They held emergency sessions to discuss the human problem. Some representatives wanted to use force to bring humanity back under Council authority. Others argued for negotiation. A few pointed out that the Council had brought this situation on themselves. Mordak found himself in an impossible position. If he tried to use force against humanity, he risked a war that the Council might not win. If he did nothing, he risked watching humanity create a rival power structure that would make the Council irrelevant. In the end, he chose a middle path. The Council passed a resolution officially recognizing humanity's right to self-defense. They didn't apologize for the original vote. They didn't admit they were wrong. But they quietly acknowledged that humans could protect themselves and their allies without Council permission. It wasn't enough. Not really, but it was a start. Kyle stood once again in the observation deck of the Aurora, watching the stars. Lisa joined him there. We're receiving messages from 20